So guys, in a nutshell, what are OpenBOR games? In my opinion, it's like finding a secret stash of retro beat-em-ups you've probably never heard of before. All that built on this free, fan-made engine that grew out of Beats of Rage and lets creators remix, mash up, and reinvent classic brawlers in wild ways. Over the years, I've been blown away by how many crazy cool titles the community has put together. In this video, I'm going to describe 15 stunning beat-em-up titles that you guys can play for free. Without further ado, let's move on to our first one.
I am Adam, Prince of Eternia and defender of the secrets of Castle Grayskull. This is Cringer, my fearless friend. Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft my...
He-Man Masters of the Universe. The moment this game loads, it honestly feels like someone finally gave us the He-Man arcade cabinet we always imagined as kids. You jump into Eternia with a whole squad of familiar faces: He-Man, She-Ra, Skeletor, Battlecat, and more. All thrown into a side-scrolling beat-em-up built in the OpenBOR engine for PC. The main story mode lets you march through iconic locations while smacking down hordes of enemies. And there's even a versus-style mode where you can pit characters against each other just for fun. The chunky pixel art, classic costumes, and sampled voices tap straight into that 80s cartoon vibe, and that's exactly what fans seem to love about it. People who try it often say it feels like a lost retro game that somehow resurfaced years later. This is the kind of fan project you can instantly sink into and just smile through.
Resident Evil Survive.
Resident Evil Survive. I'm not gonna lie, this one caught me off guard in the best way. Resident Evil Survive takes that familiar zombie horror vibe and squeezes it into a side-scrolling beat-em-up built for the OpenBOR for PC. But it still feels tense instead of mindless. You move through dark streets, labs, and hallways, juggling melee attacks, limited ammo, and crowd control, so even simple encounters feel like small survival puzzles. It mixes classic Resident Evil style characters and creatures with a faster, more arcade-like flow, which fans seem to really enjoy because it keeps the pressure on without becoming frustrating. People say it feels like playing an alternate timeline RE spinoff on a retro console that never existed, and that's exactly the charm here. If you love the idea of smashing zombies, managing space, and pushing forward through atmospheric stages with a horror twist, this is a fan game that's very easy to sink a whole evening into. God of War Ragnarok. Okay, so this one really feels like someone took a PS2 era God of War and squeezed it into a slick little retro brawler. God of War Ragnarok is a short OpenBOR fan game for PC by Z-Vitor, where you control Kratos on a brutal run through Norse lands, cutting down monsters and facing Thor and his allies in classic side-scrolling fashion. It was released around early 2021 as both a playable game and a kind of template, so people who want to learn OpenBOR can poke around the files and build their own projects from it. Gameplay-wise, it leans heavily into fast combos, crowd control, and screen-filling special moves that really sell Kratos' weight and power. Players like how it mixes that familiar hack-and-slash feel with chunky sprites and simple stages that you can blow through in one sitting. If you love the idea of Kratos raging his way across a pixelated Ragnarok, this is a quick but satisfying shot of action. Justice League Legacy. When I first booted this up, It honestly felt like I just found a lost episode of the old Justice League cartoons that you can actually play through. Instead of just watching Superman and Batman team up, you're the one mashing buttons and calling the shots. Justice League Legacy is a fan-made OpenBOR beat-em-up on PC and Android where you jump between heroes like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and more, each with their own moves and supers that really change how you play. The stages take you from bright cityscapes to darker Gotham-style streets and full-on cosmic battles, and it constantly feels like you're moving through different episodes of a show. What I love most is how it captures that everyone together against something huge energy. If you've ever imagined building your own Justice League lineup and walking into a fight side by side, this game lets you live out that exact fantasy in a very simple pick up and play way. Crisis Evil RE2. Picture something like this. Classic Resident Evil 2, but instead of fixed camera angles and tank controls, you're walking sideways through Raccoon City, punching, kicking, and blasting your way out. That's exactly the kind of energy this fan-made Crisis Evil-style OpenBOR game gives off. You're still dealing with zombies, mutants, and tight corridors, but now it feels more like an intense arcade beat-em-up with horror dressing. I really like how every encounter still feels risky. You're constantly watching your positioning, deciding when to go in for melee and when to back off. The graphics lean into that dark, grungy late 90s vibe, with moody streets, labs, and alleys that instantly remind you of the original game. If you've ever wished you could just charge straight into the outbreak with more aggression and less slow pacing, this is that fantasy. Raw, simple, and very easy to lose track of time once you get into the rhythm. Batman Gotham Knight. The thing that grabbed me with this one wasn't even the combat at first. It was really the vibe. Batman Gotham Knight throws you straight into a grimy, side-scrolling Gotham where every street, rooftop, and alley feels like trouble waiting to happen. It's an OpenBOR beat-em-up for PC where you're clearing the city the old-school way, moving from left to right, knocking thugs down with combos, counters, and those quick Batman-style gadget hits. Instead of overcomplicated systems, it keeps the controls simple but gives you just enough mobility and crowd control to feel clever when you line things up right. Visually, it leans toward that animated series look. Dark blues, heavy shadows, glowing signs, and enemies that feel ripped from a late-night cartoon marathon. People who enjoy this game usually talk about how arcade it feels, like the Batman cabinet we never got. Thundercats. This one hit me like flipping channels and suddenly landing back on an 80s TV block. The Thundercats OpenBOR game feels like a straight-up love letter to the cartoon, but wrapped in a side-scrolling beat-em-up for PC. You get to step into the boots of Lion-O and the gang, cutting through waves of enemies with big, dramatic attacks that really make the Swords of Omens feel powerful. The gameplay is all about forward momentum, short stages, tight groups of enemies, and special moves that reward you for taking a bit of risk instead of just backing away. The pixel art leans hard into bright colors and sharp silhouettes, so characters pop against those fantasy sci-fi backgrounds. Fans who play it often say it feels like the Thundercats game that should have existed back in the arcade and 16-bit days. Alien vs. Predator. With this one, the first thing I felt was, okay, this is pure 90s arcade energy. The Alien vs. Predator OpenBOR project takes that classic humans caught between two monsters setup and turns it into a fast, aggressive beat-em-up where you're basically wading through xenomorph chaos. You can expect a mix of hand-to-hand attacks, weapons, and big crowd control moves that make you feel powerful but never completely safe. Enemies come at you from all sides, and it really leans into that feeling of being overrun if you stop paying attention. The art style usually mixes dark industrial stages with the slimy, organic look of alien hives, which makes each level feel like a different kind of nightmare corridor. If you enjoy old Capcom-style arcade brawlers and sci-fi horror, this is an easy recommendation. Castlevania: Legacy of Dracula. Instead of slowly climbing a castle in a pure platformer, this game lets you walk straight into the nightmare and start swinging. Castlevania: Legacy of Dracula uses OpenBOR to shift that familiar gothic world into a side-scrolling beat-em-up where whips, magic, and melee attacks all sit on the same stage. You push through candlelit halls, graveyards, and eerie courtyards, knocking back monsters with wide arcs and timing your specials to clear space when things get too crowded. The visuals go full-on gothic. Heavy shadows, moonlit skies, and detailed sprites that really sell the Castlevania atmosphere, even in a more action-heavy format. People who enjoy it often mention how satisfying it feels to combine that old-school Castlevania mood with quicker, more aggressive combat. Mortal Kombat: Outworld Assassins XL. Outworld Assassins XL is an OpenBOR fan game that takes MK characters and throws them into long, scrolling stages packed with enemies instead of round-based matches. You're still doing special moves, uppercuts, and big flashy attacks, but now you're chaining them on groups of foes and mini-bosses as you move forward. The tone is pure MK, dark fantasy, nasty creatures, and plenty of brutal impact in the hits, even in pixel form. Stages often feel like dangerous gauntlets, with traps and enemy waves that force you to pay attention rather than just mash. Fans who click with it usually talk about how cool it is to see Mortal Kombat characters in a more adventure-style setting. X-Men: Hunter for Mutants. X-Men: Hunter for Mutants feels like jumping into a long-lost 90s comic arc and actually playing through it instead of just reading it. Built on the OpenBOR engine for PC, and also seen running on Android, it lets you control characters like Shadowcat, Psylocke, Nightcrawlers, and later Sabretooth across a full-length side-scrolling campaign. The gameplay is classic beat-em-up, but with fast dashes, special attacks, and big hitboxes that make each mutant feel distinct and surprisingly mobile. Stages are wide and busy, full of sentinels, robots, and cloned enemies as you fight through an invasion of New York led by Dr. K and his army. The Mugen-style animations, large sprites, and widescreen presentation give it this chunky, fan-made arcade feel that people really respond to. If you ever wanted a tough, slightly chaotic X-Men brawler that actually feels like a full campaign, this one will absolutely keep you busy. Ultimate Double Dragon Spawn and Shaq Demo 0.91. This is one of those mashups where you almost laugh at the character select screen, and then you start playing and realize how fun it actually is. Ultimate Double Dragon is an OpenBOR beat-em-up build that throws classic Double Dragon-style street fighting together with wild guest characters like Spawn and even Shaq, all sharing the same side-scrolling playground. The combat leans into crowd control, juggle-friendly moves, and simple but punchy combos, so it feels instantly familiar if you grew up on arcade brawlers. Visually, it has that kit bash vibe, sprites and backgrounds from different inspirations stitched into something that still works as a chaotic fan project. If you're the type who loves bootleg energy crossovers and couch co-op chaos, this demo is a fun little experiment to mess around with. Kill Bill. Okay, so with this one, you can almost hear the soundtrack in your head before the first punch lands. Kill Bill is a fan-made OpenBOR side-scrolling beat-em-up for Windows where you play as the bride on her revenge path against O-Ren Ishii, retelling key parts of the movie as playable stages. Originally based on a 2004 OpenBOR project by Senile Team, this later version from Thatcher Productions adds more animations, refined level layouts, new enemy behavior, and extra moves to make the combat feel smoother and more dynamic. Gameplay is all about tight sword-based combos, quick movement, and timing your attacks so you don't get surrounded. Visually, it leans into stylized, gritty environments that match the film's tone, with lots of close-quarters fights that really suit a beat-em-up. If you enjoy stylish, movie-inspired action, this is a short but memorable slice of vengeance. Marvel Infinity War Remake. Marvel Infinity War Remake is also known as Marvel Infinity War the game in some builds. It is an OpenBOR fan project for Windows that pulls together a huge roster of Marvel heroes and villains into a classic side-scrolling beat-em-up format. You get dozens of playable characters, with some builds showcasing around 100, each bringing their own special moves, supers, and team-up potential as you fight across stages inspired by different corners of the Marvel universe. The gameplay is fast and punchy, clearly influenced by games like Streets of Rage, Maximum Carnage, and old-school Marvel arcade titles, but remixed into one giant crossover. Fans love the sheer fan service, seeing unlikely teams, crazy combos, and stages full of little references. Tale of Vengeance. Tale of Vengeance is one of those OpenBOR projects that leans hard into the idea of a grim, straightforward revenge story told through pure gameplay. It puts you in the role of a lone fighter working through side-scrolling stages filled with enemies that feel less like random goons and more like steps on a personal grudge list. The combat is classic beat-em-up, but with a heavier, more deliberate feel. Attacks land with weight, spacing matters, and you're encouraged to read enemy patterns instead of just mashing through them. The art direction usually goes for darker, muted tones and rougher environments, matching that one person against the world mood. People drawn to this game often mention how satisfying it is to slowly push forward through tough encounters and feel that momentum of payback building. If you like revenge-driven stories and prefer your brawlers a bit more grounded and serious, Tale of Vengeance is a nice, focused experience. So yeah, that's my little tour through some seriously interesting OpenBOR beat-em-ups you can jump into right now, completely free. If even one of these games gave you that old-school arcade itch, then this video did its job. Try a few, tell me your favorites in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.